Self-driving cars, delivery drones, and fleets of automated mining machines have moved from headlines to habits, but they can only travel as fast as the tech underneath it. On Interconnected, a new show by Equinix that explores the hidden infrastructure behind our connected future, they shed light on the challenges of scaling safety, where computation happens, and a future where cities are built with autonomy in mind. MIT research scientist Brian Reimer and emerging technology leader Patrina Steele explain how the way we move is changing and where the future will take us. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hello, everyone. This is a super quick intro this week because it is time for our Cloud and AI Trends show. And as always, this is a long one. I'm traveling this month, and I'm actually recording the intro from a hotel room, so please excuse the slightly reduced audio quality while I'm away from our massive studios. But luckily for you, both Brian and Brandon were in the massive studios, and they have lots of news and hot takes for you again this month. And all of that is coming up right after this break.
Today's show is sponsored by Mailtrap, modern email delivery for developers. The complete email API that does everything you need it to do. Try it today at mailtrap.io and get 20% off for all plans with the promo code CLOUDCAST. That's mailtrap.io, mailtrap.io. And we're back, and it is good to be back with everybody with the world's probably most popular AI and Cloud News of the Month show. Brandon Whichard of Software Defined Talk. Great to be back with you again this month, man. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving? How's your holidays been?
You know, all of those things have been great. Thanksgiving, the best holiday, as I think you agree. The only holiday I want to export from the United States to the rest of the world, just giving thanks, eating a lot of food, hanging with your friends and family. But of course, we can't start the Cloudcast without at least referencing college football. And my segue this week is simply this. Lane Kiffin has left, a very famous coach here, has left a winning program. He's going to have a chance to go to the playoff, and if he won 3 games, win the national championship. He's decided to opt out. He's leaving that team to go to a rival team for probably the same money, but potentially a little bit more prestige, if you will. And it got me thinking over the holiday about kind of AI and like what we're doing here. And at some point, it's like all of the stuff, it's like, why are we doing any of this, right? So college coaches say the goal is to win a college national championship. But even when they're very close to winning it, they say, well, actually, no, the goal is for me to get a better job and some place else I want to be. And it got me thinking about AI a little bit. It's like, I feel like with all the news we've seen this week, it's like at some point we always hear like AI is going to change the world. We're all going to be out of a job. This AGI is going to take over. But then when I watch the people that are closest to them, they mostly like quit places that are working on that to go to other places to make more money. Like I was thinking of the Facebook, or I guess Meta rather, hired a bunch of top AI researchers. And then there's always, they're always like moving around from like one Anthropic to OpenAI or going to like Google. And it's sort of like, is anyone actually working on the end goal, or is the end goal just to churn through and make as much money as you can personally, but we really don't even care about the end goal. So that was my thought about it. Just like these college coaches, like sometimes I wonder, like, does anyone actually care about winning the national championship, or is it just getting a longer contract, a bigger buyout, and just working where you want? What are your thoughts, Brian? You must have thoughts on this.
No, I agree. I think, I think we've proven that everything eventually is college football, right? Every sort of societal thing, there is an analogy to college football. I think, it's we spent 3 years now, with people noodling and predicting and pontificating about like AGI. It was AGI, and then it was augmented super intelligence, and then super intelligence, and all these sort of things. And again, I think you've highlighted it perfectly, that all of that is just sort of a fraud. It's just sort of a front to get people to go, okay, let's make sure I can find a bigger pile of money. And then, once you've established a big pile of money, then it's a free for all. It's a complete free for all for everybody. If anybody thinks there's a loyalty to a company or to a group or to anything like that, it's that's fool's gold. People will ultimately, whether you're in technology or whether you're in AI or whether you're in coaching or whether you're in you're the pastor at the church, like you're probably going to go chasing the money if it comes to you, no matter what somebody else tells you to do. And no, I think that's the perfect analogy. I think that's the perfect sort of start for today's show. I like it. I like it. I was going to start by asking, like, are you guys making any announcements? Are you firing anybody or hiring anybody? But no, I think that's a better analogy than anything else. So, well, listen, I was making up the run of the show, the list of the show, and there's. We always sort of break it up into cloud stuff and then AI stuff. And I think for this last month, the cloud stuff basically boils down to, there was a few things that happened. Cloudflare went down, and it was down for 4 hours. I think maybe we should let's start with that, because I think that this breaks our rule. So we had a rule as of last month that you and I talked about, which was never put anything in US East 1. Just put it anywhere else. Any other AI or any other AWS region is great. Cloudflare had an outage. I don't know that. Are there places are there Cloudflare regions that you can avoid? Because I've always just heard it be Cloudflare. I
don't think so. I think once you're in their like content distribution network, CDN, right? It's like that's the thing. You're everywhere. You're either everywhere or you're nowhere when it comes to Cloudflare.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example of like that is true lock-in. They had an outage. The thing I've come to love about the outages is, and I always think like, okay, I have a reasonable amount of technology knowledge because just we talk to a lot of people and we've done different stuff. I've never seen, so Cloudflare's outage was apparently they had some sort of file, some configuration file that like auto generates based on something happening. And it just got too big. And I assume it was just a big text file, but maybe it wasn't a big text file because, text files aren't that big. And apparently it got so big that, whatever the system downstream of it couldn't parse it anymore. And I think the thing I love the most out of all these postmortems is I come to realize that like the biggest systems in the world, the things we talk about investing millions and billions of dollars and all these sort of things, they all basically are dependent upon one Band-Aid or one bobby pin or one piece of bubble gum that somehow keeps the entire system together. And, that makes me feel good that, for all of the big brains that are involved with this stuff, it always boils down to like the least, the weakest link in the chain that brings down these things. So I appreciated that one for Cloudflare. They're only down for about 4 or 5 hours, and nobody knew what they were, but it was like, oh, the internet's not working again. So that was good. But I feel like that was sort of the crux of the cloud news of the month. Everything else was just sort of small details.
Well, wait a minute. I did want to get your take on one. This is sort of way back to your old life almost. It's like Kubernetes is retiring Nginx ingress. Yeah. I thought like that itself, I thought was kind of newsworthy, right? Because it's widely used. I mean, the quick story here is it's widely used. I think people generally like it. Yeah. The reason they're retiring it is very simple. The people that work on it is volunteer based. They don't have the time nor the effort they want to put into it anymore. No one's paying them. So they're like, we're just going to retire it. And so it brings up the age old open source discussion, which we could have again if we want, or we just sort of like, I don't know. It's just a circle of life. It's like, it is what it is. You just have to like, okay, everyone, you need to go find some, and there are many other solutions. There's a bunch of blog posts. So there's other ways to do it. So is it just like, hey, tough luck, everybody. Sorry you like this so much. None of you freeloaders want to pay. So go get it somewhere else.
That's right. Well, I think it highlights kind of an important thing, though. I feel like once a year, there's a thing like this where it's like some thing that everybody kind of takes for granted, but is pretty important. In this case, ingress controller and Kubernetes, sort of the on-ramp to your Kubernetes cluster. Was all dependent upon, probably one or two developers, right? And you've got Kubernetes. It has become a big time thing, as Chris Anisek, pointed out here on the Software Fine Talk Slack. It's probably generating, collectively $5, $6, $7 billion worth of revenue across different vendors and all sorts of stuff like that. And so, my question becomes like the CNCF takes in all this money from vendors as like sponsorship money for what they do. They do a bunch of stuff. And yet once a year, there is always some project that people just go, I didn't feel like doing it anymore. And while there are 12 other ingress controllers, there never seems to be any money that's allocated by the CNCF to the thing that they always allow there to be sessions for. There are people like, we should really pay the maintainers. They should have a pool of money that once a year goes to the emergency maintainer fund, right? It's the one project a year that everybody goes, oh shit, they came, because this was one of these ones that I think they announced it like, within 3 months or something. And they go, well, like they should have allocated money for like 1 year, one developer for 1 year, every year for the emergency project, so that when they announce that it's 3 months, it's 3 months, but not really 3 months. It's like 3 months plus the emergency money, and then they scrape a little bit off of every project, every KubeCon, every t-shirt sold, whatever it is, so that we don't have this situation in which, we know everybody's not going to listen to the announcement. They're not going to update the stuff when they're supposed to do it. This is the equivalent of that, right?
One's going to do their homework.
Yeah, it goes back to being like that's the Band-Aid they provide to the entire the CNCF community, the KubeCon community, once a year. And I think that would be that'd be a noble thing to do. It would probably cost them $200,000 or $300,000 a year, maybe less. Maybe it's $200,000 a year. But they could peel that away. They could scrape that away. They could maybe have like one less dog petting situation at the KubeCons or whatever it is, and maybe slightly smaller, name tags or something like that. They could save some money somewhere, because I feel like this happens every single year. This isn't a unique thing to Kubernetes or any other project, right? Like it seems to happen every year. I don't know. Thoughts on them stepping up to the thing that they always say the community should do, even though the community is paying money into them for maintaining stuff for maintainers, but nobody actually ever steps up to that.
Okay, so of course, I'm going to tie this back to college football because that's what we do on this podcast. And I think the CNCF is a popular thing to criticize for different reasons. And I probably have made my own criticisms of it. But if we look behind it, much like college football, like you hear people criticize the conferences and they criticize the NCAA. But then you ask yourself, wait a minute, like who controls the conferences and the NCAA? It's the schools and the school presidents, right?
Right.
So like if they wanted the rules to be different, or they wanted different behavior, those people have all the money and they can make the changes, right?
Right.
Instead of having this convenient or the organization, like, what could we do? Right? What could we do? The NCAA? No, you are the NCAA. And I think the same thing here. It's a little different in the sense of like the CNCF is if you will, kind of I don't know. I think of it often as like a clearinghouse of like, okay, we want to put all our trademarks and things here. But then when we give money, the sponsors give money, and some of them very large companies, they generally do want big conferences. They want their conferences to have lots of people. They want to have keynote sessions, or at least sessions where they can talk. Whereas, I mean, they could easily say, hey, we're going within the money that we give, we also want to allocate what you just outlined, right? Some amount of money and we could just figure it out, some amount of money for established projects that need to keep going, right? So it'd be a very easy call to go to the CNCF and convene the 5 largest donors, sponsors, and say, do you want to do this? Now, I don't know, would those donors and sponsors be like, no, we don't want to pay for that. That's not what we're paying for. Then at some point we kind of have to look back and be like, well, the industry, it doesn't want, I mean, it's expressing itself to the CNCF, but the industry doesn't want to do it, right? They're fine. Like I don't even want to name names, but they're all the big, all the big cloud companies are generally involved. So let's just stipulate that. So it's like, I think they're all like, no, like that's fine. That they're probably fine. Like, we don't care that this thing is, we don't care enough to actually carve out a little of our budget inside the CNCF for you to pay for it. At least that's the message. So I think the CNCF in this case is just kind of like, we all have a boss. I think they're kind of just doing what they're chartered to do. Is that being too generous to them?
I think it's fair. I think it ties back to the thing that Cote always does, where he makes the assumption that because Google makes a lot of money, that they just have infinite money. Like they literally just have a money printing machine, which I guess theoretically they kind of do. But, he always likes to go, well, because they have so much money, they should just step up and do this thing that would be a good thing for everybody. And for anybody that's worked at a regular company, you go, yeah, that would be cool in theory. But at some point, even in the billions of dollar budget, companies, it always trickles down to a bunch of people and they go, well, Bill, are you going to put your money into A group, or B group or C group. And you're like, no, I thought we had infinite money. I shouldn't make decisions. It's like, no. You have finite amount of money. So yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's kind of the ongoing thing that like everybody thinks that open source it sounds great and it's cool and whatever until this happens. And then everybody's like, oh wait, there really isn't any money. There really isn't any extra money in open source, to just do the maintaining thing. And the thing about this is, this is NGINX. I mean, they were, they're a commercial company. They just decided to stop doing it for whatever reason they stopped doing it. So yeah, it's kind of a good, throw cold water on your reminder of like, how the world really works versus what goes on. So, all right, let's get to the AI portion of things, because I think this last month, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like this last month was the month in which we started to have the first glimpse, the first sort of light or crack in like the reality of AI. And what I mean by what I mean by that is, at least in the Gen AI world. So I mean, we've gone 3 years now. We are now, we came up on the yesterday. Well, we're recording this on December 1st. This will probably go out on like the 3rd, but November 30th was the 3-year birthday of ChatGPT. Basically, since then, it has been a ChatGPT / OpenAI world for the most part. Like it feels like every announcement somehow has a tentacle or an arm tied to those two things. And everything that they put out was the math didn't make any sense. Like you did the numbers, and everybody for the last 3 years has really been that guy, Brad Gerstner, that venture capitalist, Brad Gerstner. And they've all been wanting to say, hey, Sam Altman, how are you taking in X amount of dollars and yet committing 100x dollars to the thing in the future? Like that, right. How is that working? And I feel like this last month was the month in which, you look at a few basic things and you go, well, Google announced huge earnings. So they've proven that they've kind of overcome the, generative AI will destroy search. Nope. They had a $100 billion quarter. Okay. So that's sort of that
life is good for them.
Right? That milestone has sort of been crossed. They came out with they came out with a model in which they finally sort of gotten their act together. They've gotten back to being like, hey, we're the guys who invented this stuff, and we have one that is
Gemini 3 is good.
Gemini 3 is good. So check that box. And then NVIDIA came out with their numbers, and everybody was like, oh my God, this is going to let us know if this is the bubble or not. And Jensen did what he's done, exactly the same thing as he's done the last 3 years, which is I blew the numbers away. We have no GPUs in stock. I have tons of backlog. And instead of the market going, oh, cool, we're going to keep rewarding you with like unlimited exponential upside, they all just went, yeah, no, not your fault, but I'm just not convinced that anybody's making money on this thing. And so it was sort of like it wasn't a crash, but it was just sort of okay, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. And I feel like this is sort of the first little bit of reality, it's like, the dropper that you get, like when somebody drops like a few drops of water in like a whiskey glass, because they're like, oh, that's going to dilute it a little bit. I feel like this is the very first mark of dilution in the AI, sort of boom for the last 3 years. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think as we always like to say, or investment people say, valuation is nothing more than today's earnings plus the story. Right. That's all it is. And so I think what you just highlighted there is that people are unsure of the story. The story now has kind of gone from like AGI is imminent and all this is going to be changed to just what you said, how is OpenAI ever going to make enough money to justify all these trillions of dollars in investment? Right. And I think the longer it goes, right, is the more, I guess, and also the other thing we should mention is like some of like famous, we call them, short investors, bear investors, like Michael Burry from fame of, the financial crisis and shorting that and Too Big to Fail, the movie and stuff like that. Several people and lots of people have come out, and there's a lot of other investment people saying these are circular investment deals. So you kind of had the finance people saying like, we have not only have we done the math, we've done the math 3 different ways. And we just see like, this is scary, right? This is like, so we see the kinds of behavior that in the past we've seen, financial crisis is created. So I think that's kind of where we are today. And I think, and I always think about this too. It's like very profitable businesses, I think, have one characteristic about them. They're just simple to understand. Like if I say to you, Apple's really successful because it sells a lot of iPhones. And then you have an iPhone and you go out at Thanksgiving and you see like everyone you know has an iPhone, right? Or like Google, it's like Google makes a lot of money from advertising because you're like, yeah, I get it. Everyone uses Google. They're getting a few cents or dollars per search. And it's like, it's just infinite. So it's just very easy to understand. But then when Sam Altman is on a lot of these shows and they start asking them these questions, like Brad Gerstner and others, like, well, how are you going to make money? It's like very complicated answers. It's like, we're not going to do advertising, but if we do, it's going to be different. And we're going to create a device. It's not a phone. It's not glasses. It's better, but you don't really know what it is. And we're going to do subscriptions for agents that are going to replace people, but we're not sure what the agents are going to do. Or like you asked me one time, like, it's like, well, how do I make an agent of myself? And I'm like, you and I are like, I don't really know. Like, so, so you kind of get like none of these things, if you will, give the tingles of like money, like huge money is about to be made. So I think that's kind of where, it's almost going to be, I'm sure maybe we'll do a cloud predictions or, cloud for whatever the whole year. But I think that's sort of setting up where we are. It's like this next 2026 is like, okay, where's the revenue going to come from? Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, right? Like that's what I want. And there isn't any answer to that, right? And it's kind of back to like we kind of kicked off the call. It's almost to the point too, like all the talk is about like people leaving and going to other places, and like Google's building TPUs and TPUs are going to replace the NVIDIA GPU, or what about CUDA? And it's like all of this stuff is like circling around the bigger question of like, where's the money going to come from to pay for all this? And there still isn't a good answer.
Right. Yeah. This is the weird thing, because like every one of us who's touched or played with any of this AI stuff, there is still a certain amount of awe with it, where you go like, oh wow, that made me a bunch of interesting stuff, right? It might have been an analysis, it might have been a brainstorming, it might have been whatever, and you're sort of like, I can see where that would be valuable to a whole set of like knowledge workers or scientists or whatever. So like that's what feels different to me in this case. Like when things like what was the thing where I forget the name of it now, because it sort of lost my mind. But like there was that whole thing where it was like, oh, NFTs, where people were trying to explain NFTs to you, and the answer was always like, you just don't get it. You're just too dumb to get it. You just don't get it. And I feel like the AI thing is a little, because everybody would look at the NFTs and they would go like, it's a file, right? And they'd be like, no, it's a special whatever. And you're like, no, but it's just a file, right?
It's an image. I can right click on my browser and save. They're like, yeah, but you don't get it. That's what it was.
You don't get it because it's stored in a blockchain or whatever it is. Like the AI stuff is weird, because on one hand, everybody who's touched it and played with it is like, man, this would help me do stuff, whether it's writing code or writing a business model or whatever it is, for a good chunk of the population. Maybe not, a welder or something like that. Maybe it was for whatever, but that's the part that I think is so hard for people, because they're like, it seems like it's useful, but yet they can't wrap their head around the idea of like, oh, but it's also built creating the most expensive computing we've ever seen in history. And oh, by the way, we don't have enough power for it. And we don't have enough space for it. And we don't have enough chips for it. Like all the technology part breaks down the sort of, and I think that's the part that people struggle with so much, is they're just like, oh, okay. I just took all these things for granted that smart people would figure that out, because they've always figured it out in the past. And now we're just sort of starting to see the first sort of speed bump. And quite honestly, like this, it might actually be a really good thing, because it might be the thing that humankind always does, which is, okay, now innovation has to be the mother of invention, right? Like you've got to figure out a way to build a cheaper hardware accelerator that will allow you to do this at 10x the size, 10x what you're trying to do, or 100x or whatever all those things are. But I do feel like there are just a ton of people who are like, whether it's SoftBank sold their whole position in NVIDIA, Benedict Evans, who's, this sort of world famous analyst who's done stuff, basically wrote 100 slides. They got to the end and he went, I don't know what's going on with AI. I don't know how anybody's going to make money in AI. Like, I just feel like this was the quarter or the month, for some dumb reason, when it all sort of kind of came together. And I think people are still a little bit kind of not sure where to go next, because they're kind of like, but I like the technology. Like the technology is sort of interesting. But I think there's a little bit of a concern of like, is it still going to be like, what's it going to look like if you can't make any money with it? Like, and chunks of it start to go away, or whatever, whatever that doesn't work out thing looks like.
Well, let me throw out one other idea here, because I think that's all true. But I also think the potential here is that the answer to how it's going to make money is obvious, but nobody likes it. And it really just comes down to advertising. And there's a good podcast here I listened to on Stratechery. It's an interview with, I guess, Eric Seufert, all about advertising. And I'll save you you can listen to the whole thing. It's good, but I'll save you the whole thing. And the point that Eric basically makes is like, no, it's not going to be like Google, where you sort of like, it's sort of like direct response. I'm looking for insurance or whatever. It's going to be more like YouTube and Facebook, right? It's very simple. It's like, if you go into your Gemini or your Open AI or ChatGPT, like, and you look at like all the queries on the left-hand side, all the things you've asked it, it knows an incredible amount about you, right? And based on that, and you can do this, you can ask the question, like, you can ask all the AIs, like, what do you know about me? Right. And it will often like come back with some startling, accurate information. Maybe not for everyone, but for a lot of one. And you just say to yourself, it's like, well, that is the perfect, I'm going to call it like behavioral advertising. It's not so much, it's not going to look at what you're querying at the moment and necessarily give you a link to like the TV you want to buy. It's going to know, I know Brian and what he's seen, all the different things. Just like when you go onto Facebook or you watch YouTube, all those ads are targeted. They're like, I know your age, I know your demographic, and I'm going to start to show you some type of ads in the right-hand side or wherever they put it that are going to be very contextual and very personal because they know so much about you. So then it starts to look like a business like a little bit like YouTube or a little bit by Facebook. And those companies are multi-trillion-dollar companies, right?
Right.
And I think what it would be is like, that answer is very unsatisfying to most people, because then of course everyone will say, we don't want advertising, right? It'll be something like that. Then there'll be like the Cory Doctorow will show up like enshittification. This is just another version of that. Yeah. But I think the ads would be incredibly valuable. And I think even Sam Altman is like, I don't want to do this. He's like, no, I think this is like only until we've exhausted every conceivable other idea, right? Like, will we come back and do what is probably the most obvious and profitable thing? And if you look at, from what I've heard, there's something on the order of like 700 people working at OpenAI that come from Facebook in some form, right? Or Meta.
Yeah.
So they have all the experts to build this. Right. Like they have that. I mean, and probably they're already built it. They built some part of it. Right.
Sure.
They even hired the new CEO of products. She came from the online grocery that I just forgot. But anyway, it was mostly an advertising business. Yep. And like that answer, I think that is the answer. Right. And I think and two things will happen. One, when they announce it, it'll suck. Right. And I think this is the part of like not working there will be bad. Right. They'll announce it and they'll implement it. And the first set of ads, it'll be awful. The UI will be awful. Everyone will attack them. They'll be like, this is wrong. This isn't what we want. It's awful. But then over time, they'll probably tweak it and it will get, good in the sense of like, it'll make a lot of money and we'll all just kind of learn to live with it and it'll make a ton of money. But everyone will be like kind of mad that we're stuck again with an advertising based product. So I don't know. What do you think of like, I guess like my core question is like, is the answer obvious, but just no one wants that to be the answer and we just have to wait until we've tried everything else? Or is there actually going to be some new breakthrough?
I think that's the $1 trillion question. I mean, is it, are people investing this much money, because essentially the game that everybody is playing except for Google is, how do I displace Google or how do I displace Facebook? Mm-hmm. And maybe that is the game that they're really playing. And the kind of cover for it has been this, this magical AGI thing, which nobody can define and nobody can tell us if we're there yet. Nobody can tell us when we'll get there yet. And again, it's the sort of, if you know. So what you do is you just keep moving the goalposts and you move the goalposts. I mean, maybe that's simply it. It's just simply like, look, whoever controls advertising with the internet wins the internet. Like that. I mean, that's been what the last 15 years have been. If you are the controller of advertising on the internet, whether you are Google or Facebook, or whether your Amazon has it, with the shopping world.
Yeah, good point.
Or some of these companies have it, within their their grocery store app or whatever it is. Like, you win the internet, period. Like, and everybody else kind of wins too, because you make the internet free except for those, those transactions. And if that's the case, then okay, that's fine. I think if you went to most people and you said, hey, are you excited about AI? They would probably go, well, kind of, sort of, like, maybe it can help with my work, or maybe it helps me with stuff around the house, or, whatever it is. It's your home cataloging thing that you guys talked about in SDT. It could be, it could be any of those things. But at the same time, you go, are you excited about it taking your job? They'd be like, nope, not so much. But if you said, hey, here's the next 10 years for you, right? Like, technology's got to go through a lot of things. For the next 10 years, you can have more targeted ads, or you can be 20% better at your job. Those are the trade-offs so it's like you get more targeted ads and you're 20% better at your job, or you lose your job. Like 100 people out of 100 would be like, yeah, sure, give me more ads and I'll be better at my job, and I'll be what. And maybe that's, like, that's a weird way of thinking about it when, a year ago, people were like, yeah, it's going to cure cancer and it's going to help you live 150 years and all these other sort of things. And, again, a lot of this stuff goes back to the old, like, you're not going to invent as much in 1 year as you think you might, but you will invent more in 10 years than you ever thought you could. And we're still in the earliest stages of that stuff. But I think my only takeaway from a lot of this stuff this week is I think people are coming to the realization, and I point a lot of this stuff back to sort of the OpenAI and the NVIDIA of the world. You put together the most expensive engineering team in the world, and you paired them with the most expensive infrastructure team in the world. Mm-hmm. And, if we think about it in those most basic terms, like, everything about the internet since the mainframe, or even just since the .com boom, the bubble bust of, like, Oracle, software running on top of Sun hardware, running on top of Cisco hardware, that was like the pre-internet. And everything since then, as far as the internet goes, is none of those things. It's no longer the most expensive hardware, and it's no longer the most expensive software. Mm-hmm. And, so maybe we have to sort of live through this, like, oh, we always repeat our mistakes twice. And this is the first sort of, like, recognition of, like, oh, okay, we're realizing, like, nope, we can't go back to that old model, that mainframe model, that Internet 1.0 model. We're going to have to build this thing in the, cheaper distributed internet model that is based on advertising, because that's the model that everybody knows and it just works. And, if the outcome of that's different, so be it. But I think
absolutely, I think you nailed it, right?
This was that first, like, okay, maybe we're that's the world we're going to.
Yeah. And I think it's like advertising is the most scalable, profitable business model. And it's like, fine. When someone comes up with a better model, call us. Like, we're all listening. We're all waiting. And it's like, it is not an easy problem, right? It's like I said, that's why I think people don't want to talk about that problem. They want to talk about, leaving to go to some other company or some fictitious hardware device, or changing the world. And it's just like, okay, I'll wait. And I think, and maybe to put a real, last comment on it, is just like, go back in time. Google's mantra was like, whatever, like organizing the world's information or something along those lines. Facebook's was like, connecting the world. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, they had these grandiose visions, but they created their money is through very targeted advertising. So that's where I think we sit today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the last piece that was sort of interesting this month, and again, it is a a twinkle in somebody's eye. It is it's a small little fleck. Mr. Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame, still, I believe, the chairman of the board of Amazon.com, or Amazon, started another company. And this wasn't like a little company. I think this was, he started a physical AI startup called Project Prometheus, which, this is where you sort of wonder, like, yes, he has a, go to the moon company, or, go to outer space.
Yeah.
Company.
The rocket company, Blue Origin, right? Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't seem to have any sort of mission whatsoever, other than just that's what rich billionaires do, because that's, they all sort of do that. Right.
Right.
But this one feels like, there seems to be the beginning of a little bit of bump of noise about physical AI companies. Like, there are some people that are smart people that have done technology before that are starting to go, I'm going to shift into that realm of physical stuff as opposed to just purely knowledge worker data sort of stuff. And I think this is going to be an interesting space to sort of watch, because it feels like it's sort of the interaction between sensors and robots, and whether it's manufacturing or things that extend out to, freeways for cars. I think this is actually probably more the sort of autonomous world that we were, people talked about 20 and 30 years ago. but this is the technology that probably will start to be in that space. So I only bring it up because we don't know what his company is going to do, but he is somebody who, has the means to do stuff at a big scale, and typically, tries to do stuff at a fairly big scale.
Well, also too, like just the fact that, it says here in the article, basically this is his first quote unquote operational role since July of 2021.
Yeah.
And of course we've all followed him on the, I don't know, we'll call it the social circuit. He's had quite a interesting way around that. So the fact that, he's coming off the bench, if you will, to like get involved day to day.
Right.
He must see this as like an opportunity that's like, I don't know. I don't even know how much money he must see inside, but I would assume it's trillions upon trillions. So it's interesting. Obviously just someone that comes from that must see a huge opportunity. And also like, this is kind of like a good answer to the question, the advertising question we just had is like, yes, of course. Like if there were robots that could deliver all the Amazon packages every day,
right,
life-changing, or just all the things that we, you do every day. Like if driverless cars were were available everywhere, and you had these robots that could deliver all the packages and can come to your house and could clean your bathrooms. And like that market, I hesitate to even guess. It's like,
right.
Who doesn't want that? So, the fact that he's doing it, that's great. My other question though is like, is it always, day one if the founder of the company leaves the company for another company? Is it like, Is that officially the day two moment where that was my only Amazon question inside there? It's like, are we sure it's still day one? Cause they just left. They left for another company.
Yeah.
It could be day two, guys.
Well, I think it does ask the interesting question. Yeah. I think that's a good question. I think the other question it asks is, will there be any, like in Blue Origin, there's no real connection between Blue Origin and Amazon, other than, they probably run their backend software on AWS or something like that. But like, you're not seeing them be like, oh, it's going to be a spin-in company. And the question you kind of have to ask yourself is like, okay, you did Blue Origin, back when it seemed like it was just literally a rich guy project, right? Like there's no mission for it other than, silly stuff about floating around in orbit. This feels like something that would distinctly be valuable to Amazon.
For sure. 100%.
Of which you still own tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, why couldn't this have gotten started in Amazon?
No, that's a good question. I mean, you can think of almost no company that wants it more. I think about all the warehouse workers and the delivery. It's like, it seems like kind of the perfect thing for Amazon to be working on. So.
Right. So this makes me wonder. So when I was, I always come back to Cisco analogies, but when I was at Cisco, the first company they acquired that did well. They had, 3 or 4 sort of core people. They ran that business really well. It helped them grow a lot. And then what happened was they left and they went and started a company that you were like, why didn't you start that inside of Cisco? And then for about a decade there, they kept doing that where they would go, they would spin out, or they wouldn't even spin out. They would just leave. They would start something and they would sort of blackmail Cisco into buying them, not officially blackmail them, but sort of like, hey, you need us. Otherwise we're going to go to your competition. And I do wonder if, this becomes the beginning of maybe he starts doing these types of things where he's like, I want to be back in charge of a small company that I can day one, and I'm going to keep day one-ing these things back in. I'm going to day two them back into Amazon.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, maybe you will, and if you go back in time, maybe they would have started AWS this way if they had known how big it was going to be. And maybe it's a lesson learned from that. It's like, hey, we should actually start these things as their own companies, and then we can sell them back, or, we can make even more money that way. And it probably keeps a lot of like antitrust and other things off their back too. It's like, yeah, we're just over here building this robot company. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with packages. Why are you bothering me?
Why would I do exactly. All right, man. Well, I think we've covered a lot. Last thing we haven't covered tomorrow. So again, today's December 1st. This will go out on the 3rd, but tomorrow is, I guess today is the launch or the start of reInvent for 2025. I think tomorrow is the Matt Garman keynote. So any quick predictions? You'll be able to make a prediction that will be good for one day. But any predictions you just want to hold off for a month, and we'll kind of do a summary review.
I guess I would. I am going to may take the easy way out. I don't have any big predictions other than I think it's going to just be speeds, and it's kind of what we were just talking about here. I think this is the speeds and feeds. AWS is, of course, like doing great financially. We have of the 200 plus services, like I don't know, 85 have been updated. There's a couple new ones. There's some weird stuff for like stuff we never thought about. They've run into some weird customer problem that they're, launching a satellite for or something. And we're all like, that's interesting. But I think AWS is firmly in the and of course they'll have a bunch of people on up there talking about AI, but I don't think they'll have any type of, like we invented a new model or we have a much better way. I think it's more like speeds and feeds, everything's good, and don't worry about it. I'm Matt Garman. I'm keeping everything running while all the other CEOs are out building the next big thing. And and I think that's kind of the job of the AWS CEO tomorrow. So, but happy to be wrong. It's great for the podcast game. It's great for all of us if they come out and just, I don't know, blow us away with something we never thought about it. So feel free, AWS, impress us, blow us away. We love that.
That's right. Do something great. Give us the $1 trillion idea that you've been looking for a couple of years. All right, man. I'll leave it there. That's a good place to stop. Thank you again for all of your insights and takes. And this time now, when we get back together, we will be almost, I guess, end of the year almost. Or maybe we might even get together after the new year. So anyways, folks, thanks you for listening, and we'll talk to you next month.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.